We have 2 months left before the realization of the fertilizer shortages is here. I'm just wondering if the news is going to run with it also to create
Probably
the artificial panic and create the artificial shortages, because the supply chains will not catch up at the state they are now.
Once hyperinflation hits, that's what happens, right? You can't replace the goods and service. So a vendor cannot replace the goods and services for the amount of these pieces of paper or even digits in in an intangible fashion. So they'd much rather have physical silver, physical gold, because they know that it holds its value more.
Check this out. Many people today struggle to manage their weight, but this is more true than ever after the age of 20, because after the age of 20, our body's metabolism slows down by as much as 4% every decade. By the time we're 50, we've experienced a 10% drop or more in our metabolism. That's a risk to health. That's why I highly recommend adaptwithketo.com. This product works by increasing the ketone levels inside your body, which in turn support boosted metabolism. A scoop a day, I saw improvements for my energy levels while working on the farm. And the best part is I never had to cut out carbs or make other changes to my diet. If you've been looking for a great way to support your weight loss goals you'll love, adaptwithketo.com. Take 51% off for the next 24 hours. Adaptwithketo.com, or click on the link in the description box below. And now on with the video. Good afternoon, everyone. This will be one of the most important interviews that you're going to watch through the entire year on timelines. Money and food. Important for both. Keeps your body alive, yet allows you to buy things to be able to prepare for the future. Have with me Lynette Zang, ITM Trading. You can check out their YouTube channel. Incredible amounts of information on where the reset might start, the triggers for the reset, how you want to protect your wealth. So how do you protect during these cataclysmic economic times? And how do you protect during these cataclysmic protein deficient times? I'm just going to preface it by saying we live in a world of cycles. Time is not linear as we've been taught since birth. Cycles return. Understanding the amplification of solar cycles in terms of centuries, millennia. So these cycles are built in. The mythologies and science today can prove that we're in cycles. Our solar system revolving around another solar system and another star is also an orbit in itself that can be calculated. You know where we sit today, 220 million years in the future, we'll come back to the same exact spot. Those kind of length of cycles have been known, mapped out. So what are the effects on our world here? Do you think these stories of legends of breaths of dragons, maybe they were referencing solar winds, the pouring out of the heavens? Well, maybe that was some sort of effect electromagnetically that caused static electricity to build up in cloud layers and ring out the heavens, literally. So when we go back through myth, legend, prophecy, we come to right this time. I mean, look at these cycles, and that's the way to preface it. But who would have very specific information about the cycles, understand the change of society and civilization was at the crux of time right now? And if you knew that information, would you not try to continue to control power moving through the cycle, controlling, riding on top of a natural cycle to retain power during the collapse moving through? Fertilizer shortages were inbound here anyway. 13% global fertilizer reduction before the Ukraine, before the Russian crisis. 13% reduction in global fertilizer was already here well before that. And herbicide shortages, which were going to knock global supply chains of anything grains down about 18 to 20% anyway without Russia. So I think there's a few maskings of causes here. I think it's being more controlled, and especially your control to food. So Lynette, thanks for joining, because I'm curious about the control to money and how we protect ourselves.
And I know that I'm quite unique in this perspective, but I go from my personal experiences that I've lived through, because that's what I can trust. I don't care about hopium. I care about reality. And when I'm looking at gold, personally, I only buy collectible gold. Why? Because I had an uncle that was a major antique dealer. And when I was about 10 years old, he showed me 2 huge floor safes in his home. And that would have been 1964, when it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces of gold. And he probably had at least 3,000 ounces in there in the legal way. And he did it legally because they were pre-1933 and our government had confiscated gold. And when you go back to all of the wars, the Civil War, the War of 1812, the Revolutionary War, and then again, I mean, as we were transitioning into this perpetual central banking era, they confiscated gold. And they had to, because that's how they fund the wars. And we've been in a perpetual state of war since 1989. So people go, oh, they wouldn't do that again. Well, then you're living on hopium. I want to be, just like I want to be connected to, I want to make sure that I can get all the food and everything that I need, but I want to make sure that I can hold my wealth. And when people say, oh, well, I just wouldn't give it to them, I want the kind of gold that I can go out and buy other assets with. So therefore, I want the kind that would still be legal if the other is not legal. And I can't guarantee either one, but I don't know. If it's happened the same way every time and we're doing the same thing, expecting anything else is hopium. And that doesn't really work very well for me personally.
Yeah, I was just thinking, imagine the rad pieces he had, because if you're talking about pre-33 gold in 1950, which is a 20-year difference, versus pre-33 gold, which is 90 plus years now, imagine the pieces 70 years old would be into the 1800s back then. Like, there must have been the most opulent, unbelievable, unfindable, amazing gold in that collection. You're going back that far.
Oh boy, I know. I wish. But he had 2 sons, so I didn't get any of that. But yeah, that would, if I knew then what I know now, but that was my training ground, right? I mean, when I'm 10 years old, yes, when he said to my parents, if anything happened to me, Aunt Bertie will be well taken care of for the rest of her life because of what's in these 2 safes. So of course I turned around and I looked. You couldn't put one more coin in there, not one. And he would go into very high-end, he was a high-end antique dealer, so he was going into high-end homes and, probably buying them for $35 an ounce, maybe $50 an ounce. I mean, buying them for nothing.
That overlaps perfectly, because these grand solar minimums, there's really been no society that's survived through this on the reset of the economy, the government,
right,
and the population migration. So when he's talking about the same thing where, every time they confiscate gold, well, I'm saying the same thing. Every time we hit this grand solar minimum period, we have a severe reset and everything falls apart, but it's assembled under a new fashion. So let me ask you about, some PAMP, let's say you have a PAMP 1 kilogram silver bar. Now, is it going to have more value if you have the SA certificate that matches up with the numbers on it, versus going in to sell it with somebody with a number bar like that with the SA certificate? Does that give it more value, or is it just I could get a 1 kg bar from somebody else, or a 20 or 2 10-ounce bars? And like, during these times of reset and monetary duress, will it have any extra value by having the SA certificate with you to show that, yes, indeed, there's a QR code on it, has a number, it was from PAMP itself, they weighed it out and all this goodness? Or is it just Wild West? I'll take anything at anything you have in hand, I'll trade for it.
Well, I think what the certificate does is it guarantees its authenticity. But I also think that during that period of time, I think that if you look at what's happening in Venezuela right now in the outskirts, where they are actually pricing food and everything else, haircuts, everything in terms of gold, right? So their gold and silver have, gold particularly has a specific weight, and gold and silver have specific qualities. So while that would be an easier thing if you've got your certificate of authenticity, and, of course, this is embedded in there, it's the same kind of thing where it guarantees that it is what it is, then it's easier to transact. But I also think I'm not as concerned about confiscation around silver as I am around gold. So I don't mind silver in any form, including, let's see, here it is, including a sterling silver chopstick, right? Because it's easy enough to test it. And that's the other thing that people need to realize is that gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. So if I needed to just cut a piece of this chopstick up, I'm not going to care, right? Aunt Bessie's sterling silver, it's 92% pure. So, for me, since I've been accumulating for so long, I have a lot of flatware, and salt and pepper shakers and all of that kind of stuff because it's still silver. Mexican silver is 92.5% pure again. So the certificate makes it easier to transact, but I definitely do believe that silver and gold in any form, people will have test kits. They will be able to transact with that, like we're seeing in Venezuela. They just weigh it out, they test it, they weigh it out, and you have a transaction.
That is going to be a different world when you go to your farmer's market, have to get a silver test kit or something. And I'll take how much for the spoon, Lynette? All right, I'll trade you 2 oranges for that one. Let me test it first.
But think about this. Everybody's got computers. Everybody's got scales. So it may kind of seem, and the test kits, I don't know how much they are now, but they're not exorbitantly expensive. And I guarantee you they're going to want to take this or even this over this once hyperinflation hits. That's what happens, right? You can't replace the goods and service. So a vendor cannot replace the goods and services for the amount of these pieces of paper or even digits in in an intangible fashion. So they'd much rather have physical silver, physical gold, because they know that it holds its value more. And it may be hard for a lot of people to realize that now, but go ahead and look at Venezuela. Go ahead and look at Zimbabwe. We have current examples of it. Current. So we're not talking about 100 years ago. We're talking about today in these different countries, how people are really transacting with primarily gold, but also secondarily silver. And see, silver gets used up in manufacturing. Gold does not, which is really why gold is the primary currency metal and what they reset a currency against. Because even though we've been taught that this is an old relic, well, really? Then why are you accumulating so much of it? And the reality is both gold and silver have the broadest base of buyer. So where we're talking about manufacturing and those other things, both gold and silver are used globally in every single sector of the economy. They have the broadest base of buyer. What do you want in a crisis? That's what you want. Something where there's only a buyer in one sector. You've got the most narrow. So if they don't want to buy, you're SOL.
And how many ounces of silver per missile? I was seeing it was like 500 ounces per missile in some of the U.S. Armory bits and pieces there. They're doing just fine. Hey, so I want to try to wind up here, but I had a
$26 and it's $26 an ounce, right?
Times 500. That's just in the missile components, because you look at the electrical conductivity, that extra 1 millisecond faster than copper on those guidance systems, and that's why they want to use that. Now, gold, I guess, was too prohibitively expensive because 500 ounces in a missile. I mean, geez, what would the price be if it was gold wiring in there versus silver? That'd be almost unbuyable. All right, so last question.
I'm sorry, one more thing. Not when you have this. Unbuyable.
I need one of those. Well, was that for a can of tuna?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's really not being joking, but the price, if you read some verses in the Bible talking about you're going to work a day's wage, the full day's wage for a loaf of bread, I mean, that's really no joke. That's kind of where we're going. And you think
Yep.
about the average person, how much would they make per day? You come down into, if you're going to average across, developed nations, would be $100, $200 a day. And that, at that price of wheat or barley, at that point you starve because you can't eat just bread. You're going to need other things too. And currency reset is my thing. Because, some of the people in Venezuela were also using cryptocurrency on the border here, but a very selective amount would still barter in cryptocurrencies. Now, here's my thing. Carbon credit trading is sort of based on a cryptocurrency validation and input, but could this be possible? Yes or no? And this is what I'm going to state the question to you here. If you were to, this all based around carbon credit, and I know the price they want to go to is $200 per one carbon credit. The current trading price is around $8. So the new world that we're entering, or maybe this will be a new monetary base, at least one of the pillars of the new monetary system beyond gold and silver. Now with carbon credits, if you remove everybody from the land or portions of land and you set across and you use surveying and you mark it out 100 acre by 100 square acres, I guess, if we want to call that, you can get the density of trees in there, and then you can use LiDAR and you can get a density of species, average density. You can know how much each tree would sequester, and then you could use that as a solid asset base, knowing the value of it for at least 20 years. But there would be no human intervention in that, because the minute you cut tree number one, like you're talking about the derivatives, you cut tree, then the value of that investment is no longer the value of that investment, meaning that you would need to remove people and keep them out of certain sections of the world, the United States, off of forest land or whatever. You digitize forests. You create the new stable coin will be the forests that are digitized as the base for the carbon credit system, as long as they can keep people out, and then they can do their average CO2 sequestration on tree species basis. So would that be a possible thing to do as a new leg of the new economy after this reset comes in? Does that sound like fanciful, or is that even possible?
Well, I mean, look, I don't know about where you are, but I can tell you right now that most of the building that's happening here in Phoenix is multifamily, so apartments. So I think that they will attempt to do that. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine in Canada just the other day, and they said that the carbon credit started at like $2, and now, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure she told me it was up to $20. So I think that they'll definitely do it, because it's all about control. And if they can control certain areas, I mean, what has lasted in families, dynastic wealth that I like to talk about, that's lasted in families for over 300 years. The minimum is 300 years, and real estate would be one of them. So to make sure that the few were really owning all of that real estate, I can see it, and I can, here's the thing too, David. I've tried to figure out what foundation they would use to create new money. Like in the fiat system, it's debt, right? So, but that's not real either. You can grow, you mentioned about all the wealth, how much wealth there is out there, but the reality is that wealth never disappears. It just shifts location. And so the goal is to have it shift away from the many to the few, and they've been very, very successful. Could they base the new monetary system on those carbon credits? Yeah, they could. They can do anything that they want, because all I've been able to find so far is that they plan on basing the new money on debt. But what that actually also means is that they're going to have to wipe out all of the debt that they already have in place, because it's at nosebleed levels, in order to start the new system. So that would make a whole lot of sense, because you've got value in the real estate, and value in the trees that are on the real estate that clean the air and do all sorts of other wonderful things. And, and we need them. Could they use that as a monetary system, as a foundation? Yeah, they could. Yeah, they could.
So where does that leave you then? You mentioned something really important. So the debt reset. Now, what if I have my house, my land, my farm, my car? I have no debt, zero debt whatsoever. The only thing I have is property tax, which you talk at great length about holding metals to be able to exchange for property tax. So if you're completely debt free and they reset the debt, is your property and home still in danger of confiscation, even though you're debt free and you don't owe anything on the properties?
The only reason why, as long as you can pay those property taxes, if you own everything free and clear, that's your biggest danger. And so that's the importance of having gold, to make sure that you can always pay that. Because what they do is they put you in crisis. Like, think back to what happened in 2008. And people were in crisis and they were panicked. And so they restructured all those mortgages, right? But whose benefit were those mortgages restructured to? Not the person that was borrowing the money, but the lenders of that money. So I think that hierarchy is going to get more and more concentrated, like it has over the years. There's been a massive consolidation in those at the top. But that would be, you just need to be able to maintain that, because most people don't own their property outright. So they have debt attached to it. Now, if you have debt attached to it, that's another function of the gold, because the price has been both gold and silver, so ridiculously suppressed. And when they reset the currency, they do it against gold. It takes something that has no real value against something that is all intrinsic value. And then you'll see gold express somewhere near its fundamental value. So if you're holding it and you have a mortgage, then you can capture some of those gains, turn it into the funny money for a second, and pay that mortgage off. So I don't want anybody to panic if they are not in that circumstance, as long as you can build your portfolio and enable yourself to pay it off. Because if you can't, or if things get really bad and you are not self-sufficient and independent, then you have to take whatever they're willing to give you. Whatever the plan is, you're going to go along with it because you don't have any choice. So it's not so real estate, if you own it outright, as long as you can pay your property taxes and you are self-sufficient so that you are not dependent on their systems, then you can maintain your wealth. You can even grow your wealth. There's an opportunity in there.
Yeah. So one last thing here. So that microcosm of time to be able to swoop in when the hyperinflation is happening, take the metals and pay off. You talked at length about, different resets through history, and that's what you study, is the downfalls of money and the restart of new systems. Like, that's always usually that system in between falls really quickly again, and then they come up with something eventually in the future. But what's the signal going to be, and the timing? And I really, in realistic terms of time, once you see the hyperinflation start, you see all these things happening in the markets. Do you have 2 months, 1 month, 3 months to be able to get your metals turned into cash, to be able to then pay down that note, own your house? But then how do you get that physical paper? Because, I talked to my banker, because I was trying to just game these out on an exit scenario to be able to do exactly what you're saying. But they're saying, well, sometimes it'll take up to 6 weeks to clear it, and it takes this long for the paper and that long. So when you go in there and pay, and then maybe they'll say, well, default, no, we didn't want to take that, and you still owe. So how do you even get that free and clear from your bank the instant you pay that off? Because there's still a huge lag time between exiting and paying off in full. I just paid off my truck and I'm still waiting. It's been like 2 weeks and I still don't have the paperwork in my hand to show that I have zero obligation on that truck and I'm free and clear. So, there's a couple different aspects moving forward: the trigger that it would be, the time of that, and then, getting with your bank to say, give me that on paper that I'm clear off the mortgage as well.
Well, that's a really good question. I would say, honestly, on average, you have 3 overnight resets. Now, it could be more than that. I don't think it's going to be less than that, since this is a global issue. I think that you want to get it paid off in the first one, because by the time you get to the third one, everything is, you just won't have any options left. So when we see that reset, that's when you go in and pay it off. And I think part of it, with all the technology that we have, even if you don't have that paper in your hand, as long as you have proof that it's paid, because most people won't. Most people won't be able to do it. So I don't know that it's official once you get your paperwork, or it's official once you get the payoff amount and you pay it off. Right? Because once they give you that amount and you actually submit the funds, then the interest and everything stops. So you just need to make sure that you have absolute proof of that, even if it takes a while for the paperwork to come through.
Yeah, that's
And I
right.
would
It was
do
like,
it.
call us and we'll give you the exact payoff amount to the minute when you send in the funds, right? And then that transfer completes. And then it was from that point, there would be a lag and a delay to actually get, like when you buy the house, you get everything. And I want that physical paper because if there's a collapse of computer systems, they're like, no, we don't have it. Well, I want, I'm just old school, in the hand, the physical. If you don't have it, if it's not in your hand, you don't own it. So true.
It's
It could be
true.
with
If you don't hold
fertilizers,
it, you
food,
don't
or
own
metal.
it. Absolutely. But I would also say, with today's technology, as long as you have that documented, I mean, you can take pictures of the whole thing so that you can have that fully documented, that you paid that off. That's the way to go.
Well, Lynette, you're using Photoshop. I just don't believe it. Where's the physical paper with the bank stamp on it? You know what I mean?
Not much is physical these days, but yes, I like those mortgage documents all paid off. I agree with you on that one.
All right. Well, any last thoughts? We've had a row conversation here for a fair bit, and any thoughts you'd like to throw out for anybody here? I'll put the links in any way, people who really want to talk to you, because I'm sure there's a line a mile deep down. Oh, who was that? I really want to, learn more and talk to her about. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
last thoughts.
Really, I think people think they have all the time in the world until that time is done. Can I even tell you how many people say, exactly when is this going to happen? Now, you are much better at that because you've got all of those charts and this data. But I think it's from a currency collapse circumstance, it's a little more challenging to know exactly the moment. So the time to get ready is before you need to be ready. I can't even tell you how grateful I am that you and I met years ago, but that I also started on this journey. Like 2010 was when I bought this property here and started putting in my food and my water. And then when I met you, I put in the indoor grow space and, to get ready, because the time to do it is now. So if anybody's out there procrastinating, stop procrastinating. That's probably the biggest thing. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Do what feels right to you to do, and don't worry about anybody else that is not paying attention, because this is not the time to stop paying attention. This is the time to get ready. That's what I would really like to say.
Yeah, and how many of us have experienced that, where you're trying to push forward and then somebody's grabbing you by the shirt and going, no, it's not that bad, nothing's going to happen, really. You're just thinking too much, you're watching too much news, you're doing. It happens a lot. So at these times, it really is at the very end. We have 2 months left before the realization of the fertilizer shortages is here. I'm just wondering if the news is going to run with it also, to create the artificial panic and create the artificial shortages, because the supply chains will not catch up at the state they are now. If we go into a panic buy, they will never catch up, at least in this iteration of time. And I'm wondering if it'll be an artificial panic run, because they did the thing with the toilet paper. And you saw, I went to Costco at those times, and there was how many people had toilet paper in their carts based on the news? I was the weird one that had all food in my cart. And I'm looking all around, all these carts are full of toilet paper, and they're looking at me, who's this weird guy buying food? He needs to buy toilet paper. I just don't know how it's going to.
I had lots of toilet paper. I was able to share a lot of toilet paper. For some reason, that toilet paper seems to be a great tool of barter. People really, and it's not just that it happened. If you listen to my videos from years ago, I'd say toilet paper, for goodness sakes. So
Again,
can
in
you
the
believe
hand. It's in the hand. It's a barterable.
it
Lynette,
is?
thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for your time. Again, last thing, how can people contact you if they want to chat more?
Well, I have a YouTube channel, and so if you go into YouTube, you can either put ITM Trading or you can put Lynette Zang, and I'll come up. We're also on, okay, so we're on Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey as well. Or they can go to our website, itmtrading.com, and we're here to be of service.
All right, thanks so much. And I'll put the links in the description box below. So if you don't want to actually type it in the browser bar, you can just click and go. I'll do you that favor. Everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of our conversation. And the weekend's coming up. Please do something this weekend to get yourselves ready. This is the real deal. It's not going away, and it's amplifying, and it'll be here so lightning fast. By the time you blink your eyes, your food prices will have doubled or tripled, and you're going to be limited on what you can buy in the stores.
Oh yeah, get growing.
All right. Bye.